My name is Bob Hartman, and I'm going to read you a story from my book, Hanging Out with Jesus Again, published by Authentic Media, written by me, illustrated by Mark Beach. We were just hanging out, me, Tommo, Bart, Jesus, and the rest of the crew, of course, when we saw this guy walking in our direction.
Nice coat,
observed Tommo.
Expensive.
How do you know? I asked.
I had a lot of rich clients when I was doing that catering job,
he replied.
Purple, that's the giveaway.
I had a nice coat once, Bart mused.
Not as nice as that one,
Tommo assured him.
Oh, no, much nicer,
Bart replied.
My Uncle Jacob made it for me. It had loads of different colors, reds and greens and yellows and blues and yes, purples. I was his favorite, you see.
Your Uncle Jacob, Tommo grunted. A coat of many colors, I added. You aren't confusing your story with the story of Joseph by any chance, are you?
I don't know anybody called Joseph,
Bart shrugged.
Nobody is saying that you do, said Tommo. It's a story from the book of the law. You know, Joseph and his jealous brothers.
Bart shook his head.
Sorry, doesn't ring a bell. Now that you mention it, though, my brothers were very jealous of me. And my coat. And my dreams, of course.
Bart, I said, that is exactly what happens in the story of Joseph.
So, this Joseph had dreams too?
Asked Bart.
Yes, I replied. And they made his brothers angry.
Yes, said Tommo.
And did his dreams come true?
Yes, we answered together.
So, he ended up running his own goat on a stick stand, Bart grinned.
No, we moaned.
Because that was my dream, said Bart. See, I'm nothing like this Joseph person.
Fair enough, I said. Sorry I brought it up.
And so you should be, said Bart. It's a very painful memory. My brothers took my coat, smeared it with chicken blood, and told my Uncle Jacob that I had been eaten by a goat.
I looked at Tommo. I'm not going there again, I sighed.
Don't blame you,
he sighed back. And that's when the rich man arrived.
Good teacher, he began, looking at Jesus. What do I have to do to live forever with God?
Good question, I whispered.
I bet Jesus has a good answer, whispered Tommo in reply.
But the answer wasn't what any of us expected. In fact, it was another question. Why do you call me good? Jesus asked him. You do realize that only God deserves to be called good.
But if Jesus is who we think he is, Bart whispered, who Peter said he is, then...
Yeah, we get it, Tommo whispered back. Well, you know the commandments, Jesus went on. Don't commit adultery, don't murder, don't steal, don't lie, honor your father and mother.
I do, the man replied, and I have kept them all since I was a boy. Not like my brothers, Bart grumbled. They murdered me and fed me to a goat.
No, they didn't, I said. Otherwise you wouldn't be sitting here. But they did lie to your Uncle Jacob about it. I'll give you that. Bart shook his head sadly.
And then, they sold me into slavery.
Who's lying now? Tommo muttered.
They did,
Bart insisted.
They really did, to a man with a toilet scrubbing business. He worked me so hard, I might as well have been a slave. I cleaned a potty here, a potty there, and a potty far, far away.
Tommo rolled his eyes. And I suppose his wife fancied you.
Of course she did, Bart replied proudly. Her husband scrubbed toilets for a living. Is it any wonder that she preferred someone who dreamed of running his own goat on a stick stand?
Jesus, meanwhile, was considering the rich man's answer. There's just one thing you're missing, Jesus told him. Sell everything you have, give whatever money you make to the poor, then you will have treasure in heaven. And when you have done that, come and follow me.
What? Everything?
The man replied.
But you don't understand. I'm wealthy. Oh, extremely wealthy.
And he looked like he was about to cry. Jesus sighed. And that is why it is difficult, extremely difficult, for a wealthy man to enter the kingdom of God." And then Jesus smiled a little smile. "In fact," he said, "it's easier for a camel to squeeze its way through the eye of a needle than for a rich person to squeeze himself into the kingdom of God."
That's funny, Bart chuckled. Where does the camel start? With his camely nose? With his camely foot? With his camely bottom?
I think the joke is that it's impossible wherever he starts," I said.
Which makes no sense, grunted Tommo. I always thought that riches were a blessing from God, that making somebody wealthy was God's way of rewarding them for doing the right thing.
And he put up his hand.
"But Jesus," Tommo asked, if a rich man has trouble getting into God's kingdom, then what hope do the rest of us have? How can anybody be saved?"
"Because anything is possible with God," Jesus replied. And that's when Peter put up his hand. "Well, we have given up a lot to follow you," he said. "We've left our homes and our families behind."
"Flippin' fisherman," Tommo whispered, always trying to score points.
But Jesus liked what Peter said. "I mean this. I really do," said Jesus. "Anyone who has given up the home he loves or the family he loves for the sake of God's kingdom will receive many times more than that, both now and in the age to come."
"Let me get this straight," Tommo whispered again. "God doesn't bless us when we get stuff. He blesses us when we give stuff away. That doesn't make any sense."
"Sure it does," Bart grinned. "My whole life changed when I gave up my dream of running my own goat on a stick stand."
"Let me guess," Tommo sighed. "You went to Egypt, you interpreted Pharaoh's dream, he put you in charge of storing up food, and you saved everyone, including your brothers, from starvation."
Bart stared at him blankly.
"I have no idea what you are talking about."
"It's the rest of the story of Joseph," I explained. "But now that you mention it, Tommo, Joseph did have to lose a lot before his dream came true, didn't it?"
"Well, yeah, I guess he did," said Tommo. "He was nearly murdered by his brothers, for a start."
"Just like me," Bart noted.
He became a slave."
"Just like me," Bart said again.
"He was thrown into prison."
"Just like me," Bart repeated. "Come on, Bart," I sighed. "You were never thrown in prison." I was locked in a loo by that toilet scrubbing man," Bart replied. Does that count?"
"Was it a prison?"
asked Tommo.
Not exactly,"
Bart answered.
But it was horrible. Someone had made the most enormous dump, and there were flies buzzing round it, and horrible fumes rising from it, and bits of undigested goat sticking out of it, and..."
"Hang on," I said. "That dump didn't happen to come from you by any chance, did it?" Bart paused for a moment.
"As a matter of fact, it did,"
he replied.
"And I think the toilet scrubbing man said something about staying in there till I had cleaned up every last bit."
"Leaving dumps behind," I continued.
"Which is what one does with dumps,"
Bart noted. "Leaving dumps behind," I sighed. "And returning to the story of Joseph, he did lose a lot along the way, which meant he had to turn to God for help, right?"
"He did,"
Tommo nodded. "So maybe that's what Jesus means," I concluded. "Maybe what he's saying is that if we have lots of stuff, we depend on that. But when we let go of our stuff or lose it in some other way, then we have to turn to God. And that's when we get blessed."
"That is brilliant, Pip,"
Bart grinned.
"And as I said a little while ago, that is exactly what happened to me when I let go of my dreams for a goat on a stick stand."
That's what you let go of," said Tommo. "But I can't see that you got anything." And that's when Big Bart put one big arm around Tommo and his other big arm around me.
"I got to hang out with you guys,"
he beamed.
"That's what. And Jesus and the others too, of course. My best mates."
Tommo went quiet. And I wiped a little something from my eye and from my nose. Well, that's very nice of you to say, I mumbled as I glanced at Tommo. And I'm sure we feel the same way.
Of course you do,
Bart said.
You're just like brothers to me. Better, in fact, because I know that whatever happens,
We would always have your back, I said.
Bart shook his head. No, we would never let you down,
Suggested Tommo. Bart shook his head again.
No, I would have thought it was obvious. I know that whatever happens, the two of you would never murder me and feed me to a goat.